social value is fast becoming a key consideration when it comes to making projects happen, whether that pressure is coming from local authorities or from institutional investors. It's part of a greater move towards becoming ethical developers as we shift away from just focusing on building spaces to crafting places. So with that in mind, I think it's really important that we discuss how we actually achieve social value. How do we make it meaningful? How do we ensure that we're actually building things that benefit communities and aren't just participating in a box-ticking exercise?
We set up social value targets on every project. We have our baseline targets, which we want to deliver on every project, which is tied in with our responsible business strategy. But we also sit down with our customers and agree and understand what's really important to them, what matters to them, and they form the kind of second element of our targets that we have. They go on top of the kind of baseline target, and they're established at the start of a project, and we deliver against those targets.
For us, it's about doing kind of what's right and not necessarily what's easy. And I think historically, as a sector, we have gone down the route of let's just do kind of go down the tick box exercise, let's do careers fairs, let's do ad hoc bolt-on activities. But actually, if we look at what the community needs and the causes behind that, I mean, as a sector, we're going through a significant skill shortage at the moment. We need people in our industry, and actually doing what we've always done clearly isn't working.
Social value strategy, it's got to start at the very start, and it's got to be done in partnership with the public sector. I think you've got to have that, almost going back another step, you've got to have that sort of corporate approach. And Dirk's word about embedded, I think we'll hear quite a lot, because I think it's naturally embedded in everything that we're doing in some shape or form. So it's embedded as a corporate strategy that needs to flow through to a project-specific strategy done in partnership with your public sector partner.
So where we speak to some of the local councillors, they say yes, absolutely, schools engagement, great, primary schools changes aspirations. They do recognise that that's a 5-7 year play. We're actually getting involved with local supply chain, the local fire door supplier who's got a contract, who could, if he gets accredited, could have a contract in a year's time. That could make a real difference to that particular small business locally. And that's where they're quite focused on making every pound of the project maximised quite quickly.
The main point is it's bespoke, and it's bespoke to every development. So a social value strategy cannot be developed and then landed in a place. It needs to be co-designed.
I think one of the big shifts there's had to be that takes social value from a tick box exercise to genuine meaningful impact is asking the communities what they want. I think it's so ironic that we all sit around these tables and talk about social value, because it's the communities, they have to tell us what they need. We've had contractors come on and they've had this big social value plan, they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and the community said, actually, we need some beds for our children to sleep in. And it was like, oh, well, we weren't expecting that. And we're looking at our next development. A huge part of that is about landscaping. So we're now engaging with local gardening groups and communities to try and bring them in. That's stuff that is literally going to be the want of what the community is asking for.
One of the things I feel is really important is how the community feels a participant during the process of development, but how they can sort of own some of the space that's developed as an ongoing basis and get that. I think that really ties in with Rachel's point around public realm. We know as local authorities we will always struggle to have the sufficient revenue to maintain our public realm to the standard that we wish it would be, and how can the community help that and get something back for themselves. So for example, we're looking at a public realm scheme where we have a charity with their volunteers, and they would love to be involved with the sort of the community planting, and that ticks a box. For us it's an absolute win-win, but for them, they own that space, it's very much a part of the community, and probably will help sort of reduce the amount of antisocial behaviour that might take place.
One project we did through Clear Futures in Bolton is there's a community centre with a food bank. They really want, they've asked us to build a kitchen in there, and that's because they have lots of people picking up food and raw food, but a lot of the users don't know how to cook that food, don't know how to use that food. So actually, if we build up a kitchen, then they can do cookery lessons, they can upskill the local community around how they cook good quality food for the children. They're also looking, they've teamed up with the local college, so the college will come in and do cookery classes to get people back into work and upskilling them to get jobs in the hospitality industry. So something just as small as that, when you talk about impact, and for me, it's always about, the greatest impact is where you leave a legacy behind.
For us, regardless actually of the place, there are some basic things, and really they come down to communication and good information. So we do home user guides, and as part of those, we always met the independent local businesses. So the information that's in that home user guide isn't really just about using the home, it's about how to become part of that neighbourhood and how to support that neighbourhood and all of its local infrastructure.
I think what we seem to be saying here is that the more that we communicate across, organisations and with communities, that we then understand the needs and we allow communities to participate, and through that they can access opportunities and it empowers them, and actually that creates a far more resilient sort of community and region and country.
And I think that helps with the local communities not feeling as if they're being sidelined by the big bad developer coming in and building loads of buildings, creating huge disruption. I think the more integrated they feel, and that's throughout the whole development process, but the more they feel they can benefit at a personal level, I think just makes the whole process, makes them feel quite more part of it.
I think there are definitely things that can't be measured but that can be evidenced, and I think we need to include that in how we think about social values.
I think it's absolutely important to measure it and to quantify it and to monetize it, but actually let's do that towards the end or throughout the process and evaluate it. Let's not kind of set monetized metrics right from the start, because then you just tend to get either bogged down in the money or you hide behind the figures. Similar to kind of greenwashing, you tend to see kind of social impact washing and people actually sitting behind those really great numbers saying, look at what we've done. But actually, if you unpick that and you actually, what was the impact that you made? What was the meaningful change? What's going to happen in 10, 20 years behind some of those numbers? The questions are often not answered.
We can certainly measure certain things, and certain things are really easy to measure. The number of apprenticeships, the number of the pound value that's gone back into the local area, that sort of thing. I think trying to measure social value on one aspect is trying to measure happiness is very different for different people, and giving a child a mattress could completely change the course of their life. You can't measure that. There's no scale in which to measure that.
I think often kind of challenge between what's social value and what's just actually being a good business. So we think about that a lot in terms of, well, we'd expect you to be paying the real living wage, we'd expect you to have apprenticeship schemes, workforce development, and those things. That isn't significant social value, that's just being a good business.
The science campus at Daresbury's it's a long-term project. It's not just one development that you're in and out of. So we keep saying we cannot be an elite campus on the moon. We must be sort of embedded into the whole community, so that the process of engaging with sixth form colleges, where they will come and do internships, potentially see exciting careers, they then suddenly start thinking, well, actually, I don't have to go to Manchester or London. I could actually have a proper stimulating career here. And actually, some of the recruitment challenges that those businesses are facing, it's sort of a double whammy. So you're keeping local people who actually quite like living local and don't necessarily want to move away, but they recognise they can get well paid and stimulating jobs.
It's been really interesting from a job satisfaction perspective, slightly different viewing it from some of our planners who were really behind bringing social value into the local plan, because in effect that they've seen their work coming to end when something's been built, whereas really a lot of them are interested in.
We've seen that definitely in terms of that kind of talent attraction and retention, and particularly the younger generations, but so anyone really actually working for an organisation that has a purpose and puts purpose above profit is something that's incredibly attractive. So I think it's important. We've spoken a lot about communities, but actually the audience at home sat there from a business, why should we deliver social value? Absolutely, it's the right thing to do, and it is a movement. It should be treated as a service line, and it is a tool for change. But within your own organisations, it'll help bring new talent into your organisation, retain the talent you've got, encourage blue sky thinking, and get rid of kind of a hierarchical approach in some cultures as well. Actually bring new thought to the table, and that will enable businesses to grow and to thrive.
From our point of view, the interesting thing is it's good business, and actually by delivering good quality social value, we create those relationships with clients, we get repeat business. Our staff are more purposeful, our staff enjoy their jobs more, because actually, the living projects is very challenging, but the industry is challenging. Actually, some of the opportunities they get to just come away from the day job to support wider communities and that kind of thing, it's really purposeful.
Hopefully it will become more that if businesses don't get on board with this, that they'll get left behind, because we're seeing it now built into policy, whether it's planning applications, whether it's procurement of contractors or local supply chain. That social value has kind of gone from being that bottom box of, how we provide social value, to it's now being scored alongside the value for cost, and it's being considered. So I think we're at a stage now where if businesses don't get on board with this and they don't take it seriously, they'll be left behind, and opportunities will go elsewhere.